Hello one and all, and welcome to the Math Magic Show. In this one, let's take a look at reading the local maximum and local minimum values from a graph. This is going to be my x-axis, this is going to be my y-axis as usual. I'll draw some curve in there, just some shape. Okay, let's add some nice arrow tips here. Now let's focus on that high point, which is shown there, as you can see, as a little black circle. And let's focus just around that point and nowhere else. So I can draw a couple other points around it very close. So for example, I could draw that I have this point and that point. Now after I've drawn all my points, I look over to the y-axis. That's the key, okay? So I'm drawing little arrows that go over to the y-axis. And then I try to label my y-coordinates. So over here, let's take a look. Let's go through that a little bit. So imagine that the highest point corresponds to the following. That y there has the value 2. Okay, and then imagine that the one below it is such that y has the value, say, 1.99, something along those lines. And last one, say, imagine has a y-coordinate, say, equal to 1.9. So as you can see, when you looked with these, the 2 is the highest value of y that you see. In other words, we call it the maximum because, as you can see, that black point has a y-coordinate that is higher than the y-coordinate of any other point around it. So I would say here that there's a local max value of 2. That's one thing. Now let's also take a look at the concept of a local minimum, because that's just as important. So to do that, you got to look for the lowest point. So in this case, say that the lowest point will occur right here. So I'm going to have the little dot, and then I draw a couple other points around it just to emphasize the fact that I'm looking for the highest y-coordinate that I can find, rather for the lowest y-coordinate I can find. And as before, to kind of exaggerate the effect, I look over to the y-axis. That's the key here. So I draw some arrows, and then on the y-axis, let's take a look. So imagine that the brown arrow that you see in front of you, that gives a value that's equal, for example, to say y equals -1. Now, the one slightly above it, say that's y equals -0.99. And say the one slightly above it, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, is y equals, say, -0.9. So that tells you that clearly y equals -1 is the lowest y that you will find in this small area right here. So you can say now that there's a local minimum value of -1. So besides just doing this, let's actually also identify where the x's are. So for example, I could say that for the local max, that x equals there +2, there's a local maximum of 2. Be careful, because x equals 2 is an x-coordinate, and the y equals 2 happens to be equal to the x-coordinate, but clearly the x and the y represent different things, so be clear on that, okay? And then to rid of the x, I would say something like that there's a local maximum of y equals 2 at x equals 2. So when you talk about the local maximum, the local minimum, you look either for the highest y-coordinate you can find or the lowest y-coordinate, and make sure to also include the x's, because the x's tell you where those highest or lowest y-coordinates occur. And that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Please give a like and subscribe. I hope it's been helpful. I'll see you in another video.